They need to decide by the end of today whether or not they agree with Police Minister Bheki Cele's decision not to renew the IPID head's contractor Robert McBride. His contract ends tomorrow. The committee has to make recommendations on the matter today, as I've just said, and since Monday, ANC MPs supported by the NFP have made a clear case for McBride to go, but the DA and the IFP have asked for more thorough introspection into the reasons for that decision, whilst the committee chair, Francois Boekman, twice asked for a discussion around the political sensitivities of this decision. His fellow ANC MPs shut the conversation down, saying that it's not for the committee to consider the current political situation. The DA raised concern about this as well and referred to the numerous successes boasted by IPID under McBride. But it is clear that the ANC has made a decision on the matter, and with its majority vote, it's likely that McBride's contract will end tomorrow. His legal team will respond once McBride has been informed of the decision. Well, to help us unpack this a little more, we're now joined from our Pretoria studio by Dr. Johan Burger from the Institute of Security Studies. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the program. Have we ever had a situation like this where the person appointed to head IPID is under so much contention, or his renewal at least?
No, I think as far as renewal is concerned, this is the first experience we've had. The other incumbents either left or were removed before they completed the term, or the second term, rather. So, yeah, so this is our first real experience with a renewal of the 5-year contract.
All right, so are we clear actually as to who is it that appoints and who is it that renews the contract of the IPID head?
Well, you know, I'm certain there is some contention around the issue, but Section 6 of the IPID Act makes it clear that for the first term appointment, in other words, the first term in office of the Executive Director of IPID, the Minister makes a recommendation to the Portfolio Committee of Parliament, and they can either confirm or reject the recommendation. And then in terms of Section 6.3b, it provides that once such a person is appointed for a first term, he or she, the contract can be renewed for a final second term. In other words, a total of 10 years. So I think the Minister was under the impression that as far as the renewal of the contract is concerned, he was solely responsible for that. But I think given the debate around the issue and subsequent comments, he realized that the Portfolio Committee will have to have a say in the matter as well. In other words, they will have to confirm or reject also a recommendation from him whether the contract should be renewed for a second term. So I think that is where we stand at the moment, but there are already a number of indications that this whole saga would probably head to court again, and I'm referring specifically to the Constitutional Court, given the 2016 Constitutional Court judgment that led to specific amendment of the IPID Act.
So let's talk about that amendment. Does it affect, for example, you know, when we talked about it here, it says that his contract can be renewed, but that doesn't mean that it's automatic, and it doesn't mean that it has to be renewed. Surely the discretion of somebody to decide whether that happens or not, even if he's done a great job, maybe they just want a new person.
Yeah, it's in a way complicated. The Constitutional Court judgment only affected the let's say the authority of the Minister to suspend and remove the IPID head from office. That responsibility is now given to the Portfolio Committee of Parliament, and so the Minister have only a very limited responsibility in that regard. But the Constitutional Court judgment did not expressly state any or made any reference to the renewal of the contract. So that part of the particular section of the IPID Act remains in place. And as I said, certainly the minister was under the impression, as far as the renewal is concerned, it was his responsibility. But now I think the interpretation all over is that you can only make a recommendation in terms of the renewal itself, and that the portfolio committee has to either confirm or reject such a recommendation. I think as far as expectation is concerned, you know, there's also some confusion given the fact that the incumbent is already in office. And the fact that the Act talks about renewal means that, you know, certainly I would interpret it this way, that unless there are any indications that the incumbent is not performing as he or she should, or there's any other reasons, say for example indications of misconduct or anything that makes him or her unfit for office, then that could lead to a non-renewal of the contract. But in the absence of all of that, one would expect that the committee would probably confer a second term on the incumbent.
All right, perhaps as a final question, because it does seem that there are political overtones with this particular conversation that's taking place. Might it be a good idea to review the process of the appointment of someone in such a critical role and his renewal, that it be done without political influence?
Yes, I think so. I think there's a need for a number of changes here, and I think the President set the example with the appointment of the new head of the National Prosecuting Authority. Although he's not required to do so by law, he appointed a committee that allowed individuals to apply for this position and then provided the necessary screening process and made recommendations to the President. Now, I think probably one should look at amending the legislation to also allow for applications for this position, and that a committee is set up to deal with applications and make recommendations, and that a new executive director is appointed on the basis of these recommendations. And then also in terms of the renewal of a contract, one should either appoint this person for a non-renewable term of 10 years, as the case is with the National Director of Public Prosecutions, or at least then make the process more, allow the process to be more fair in terms of how this is dealt with in terms of considering a second term. I think this probably comes from the Constitutional Court judgment, where a lot of emphasis was placed on the independence of the head of IPID, in as much as it said that there should be absolutely no political interference. Now, if a minister has the authority or is allowed to make recommendations about renewal, that could amount to political interference, unless he or she can point to substantive evidence that that person is no longer fit for office. So in my view, I think, you know, this is a sort of a self-made crisis situation that we are currently stuck with, in the sense also that both the minister and the portfolio committee was aware of the fact that the issue of renewal was coming up months ago. So why wait until 6 weeks rather, before the contract ends, to then suddenly start a process of saying to Mr. McBride that your contract will not be renewed for a second term?
All right, so that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thanks very much indeed for your insights today. Thank you very much, Professor Johan Burger. Thank you.